Right. Alright. Ah, hello again. I'm Zach Jones. You probably remember me from many of my videos, and as you probably saw yesterday, I read from the Doctor Who book, Engines of War. I'm going to be doing that again today. Here it is. Doctor Who, Engines of War. Set during the Great Time War, when the Time Lords and the Daleks fought each other. The Doctor was a part of that war, and I'm going to be reading in Chapter 2 from Part 1, Moldox, where the Doctor engages in a battle above the planet in the Tantalus Spiral in his TARDIS. Now, are you all sitting comfortably? Good. Right. Sit back, relax, and get ready. It's about to begin. High above Moldox, a blue box folded into reality, sliding effortlessly from the time vortex. It seemed incongruous here on the outer edges of the Tantalus Spiral, a relic from ancient Earth that had fallen through time and space, only to appear here, its domed light blinking wildly as it returned to a corporeal form. If sound had carried in space, its appearance would have been accompanied by a laboured, grating wheeze, but instead there was only silence. The arrival of this anachronistic object did not, however, go unnoticed, and the appearance of the TARDIS flashed up warning signals on 1,000 Dalek control panels. Dalek saucers stirred into action, gliding through the void to adopt combat formations, lights stuttering as they powered up to full readiness. Inside the TARDIS, the Doctor, or rather the Time Lord who had, before now, lived many lives under that name, rotated a dial and stepped back from the console. He folded his hands behind his back and waited. Around him, the roundels and walls on the walls glowed with a faint luminescence, causing the craggy lines of his face to be picked out in shadow. The map of 100 years or more, worn thin through conflict and weariness. The central column burred gently as it rose and fell, as if the machine was somehow breathing in and out, in and out. The thought was comforting. It meant he was not alone. He sighed and glanced up at the star field being projected through the dear upper ceiling of the console room. Above him sat the ethereal form of the Tantalus Eye. The Eye was an anomaly, a vast fold in space-time, an impossible structure that had no right to exist, and yet, nevertheless, did. How it had formed, whether it was natural or engineered, no one had ever been able to discern. All that the Doctor knew was that it predated the Time Lords, and that Omega, the great engineer in those halcyon days of Time Lord Diaspora, had written of the Eye and its many obscure secrets that it still held to this day. From this far out on the edge of the spiral, it had the appearance of an immense, gaseous body, of a swirling human eye, encircled by a helix of inhabited worlds. It was pricked with the fading lights of dying giants and kernels of new, hungry stars, freshly reborn in the endless spiral of death, and resurrection, celestial bodies trapped within its event horizon, and the influence of its temporal murmurations. To the Doctor, it was utterly breathtaking. He had come here often in his other lives, particularly his fourth and his eighth, those of a more romantic persuasion. Although, now, those days were like distant memories, dreams that had happened to somebody else. Now, there was nothing but the war. It had consumed him, remade him into something new. A warrior. Just like the Doctor, the war had changed the Tantalus Spiral too. Once a peaceful haven, it was now heightened by the Dalek Occupation. It had become a war zone, like much of the universe, a staging post from which the Daleks could continue their crusade to populate eternity with their progenitors and wage their ceaseless campaign against the Time Lords. That was why the Doctor had come to the Spiral. The Daleks were massing there, and he needed to get a measure of their strength. There was one simple and effective way to do just that. Right then, he growled, "Come and get me." Above the TARDIS, the Dalek saucers began to converge. They were not yet in range for their energy weapons, but the Doctor knew that at any moment he could expect a barrage. He stepped forward and took the controls once more. "Wait for it," he mumbled to himself. "Wait for just the right moment." He flicked a switch and opened the communication channel. 100 or more Dalek voices were chanting a righteous cacophony. Their words were barely discernible, but he knew very well what they were saying. "Exterminate! Exterminate!" Even now, the sound of it made his skin crawl. They were getting closer. Still, the Doctor waited. The lead saucer finally moved within range, scudding overhead. "Now!" The Doctor bellowed at the top of his lungs, cranking a lever forward and gripping the edge of the console so that his knuckles turned white with the strain. The TARDIS shot straight up like a rocket. It caught the saucer completely unaware, colliding with its dome-encrusted belly and ripping through at an immense velocity, erupting through the top of the ship and spinning off, twisting on its axis. The electrics inside the saucer fizzed and popped, visible through the ragged hull. It listed, spinning out of control, the weapons blazing indiscriminatingly. One energy beam took out a neighbouring saucer, while the damaged ship itself went spinning into another, which proved too slow to take evasive action. On his monitors, the Doctor watched the shells of damaged Daleks drifting away motionless into the void, as the ships themselves burned up. "That's done it, old girl," he said, manipulating the controls once again to swing the TARDIS out of the path of another energy weapon. The Dalek saucers shifted like a flock of birds, swooping after him, their cannons spitting death all around him. "That's right," he said. "Follow me." Like a pilot of a stunt plane, which he'd made a point of watching with the Brigadier back in his unit days on Earth, the Doctor ducked and weaved at the TARDIS, left, right, up, down, looping across the void, leading the Daleks on a merry dance, but always staying one step ahead of their guns. And all the while, the baleful glare of the eye regarded them impassively. "Right, isn't it about time?" The Doctor broke off, grinning, as 100 or more battle TARDISes phased out of the vortex behind the Dalek fleet. "Now we've got you!" he crowed, rotating a handle and dipping the TARDIS, bringing it back around on itself so that he could zip underneath the oncoming wave of Dalek saucers and join his comrades. Weapons transmuted from the outer skin of the battle TARDISes, plain white lozenges with the outer shell of living metal that could morph into shields, or many number of predetermined gun emplacements. The TARDISes scattered, shooting off in 100 different directions as the Daleks attempted to reverse their course, coming about to face the enemy who had so easily outflanked them. Time torpedoes launched in a wave, a score of them finding their mark and freezing their targets, trapping them in a temporal holding pattern, a locked second from which the saucers could not escape. The Dalek ships bloomed into silent balls of flame as the Time Lords followed up with their volley of explosive rounds. The Daleks weren't backing down, however, and as the Doctor's TARDIS burst through the surface of another saucer, sending it spinning towards one of the planets below, they managed to set loose their own first volley, detonating TARDISes with every strike. The Doctor watched as the dying time ships blossomed, their interior dimensions folding out into reality, unfurling like violent flowers to swell to their true size before burning up in the vacuum. His fingers danced across the console, the controls, and the TARDIS danced away just as the Dalek ships spat a second volley. "Phase!" he bellowed over the communications rig, and the Time Lords did as he commanded, their TARDISes blinking suddenly out of existence. They appeared again a moment later, having leaped 2 seconds into the future to avoid the crackling beams of the Dalek weapons, which faded away harmlessly into space. Their return volley was far more effective, detonating countless Dalek saucers. "Retreat! Retreat!" The chorus of Dalek voices, now diminished but still audible in the background, had changed. They were attempting to regroup, pulling back towards the eye and using the wreckage of their fallen brethren as cover. "We've got them on the run, Doctor," called a satisfied female voice over the comlink. "Stay with them," he replied. "Press the advantage." The Time Lords, now outnumbering the Dalek vessels 2 to 1, did precisely that, surging forward, some going high, others going low, trapping the retreating Daleks between them. The time torpedoes did their work, stuttering the Dalek retreat, and within seconds, the space above the Tantalus Eye was filled with the wreckage of the remaining Dalek fleet. "Well done, Doctor," said the woman on the comlink. She sounded jubilant. This was Captain Prader, commander of the 5th Time Lord Battle Fleet. "We led them on a merry dance indeed." "Don't count your victories too soon, Prader," replied the Doctor, his tone grim. "I'm not sure it's over yet. There could be more of them lurking in the shadow of those planets." Then let's take a look," said Prader. The comlink buzzed off, and the battle TARDISes, assembling themselves into a spearhead formation, slid closer towards the Tantalus Eye. Warily, the Doctor fell in behind them, keeping an eye on his monitors. The ambush came without warning. There was no alarm, no indication that anything was awry, that they'd triggered some sort of trap. 1 second there was nothing. The next, an armada of Dalek stealth ships had blinked out of the vortex. The Doctor had seen these ships only a handful of times before. Sleek, ovoid vessels on the of the purest black, devoid of the usual winking lights that typically marked a Dalek saucer, and twice as dangerous. They were a recent and unwelcome development. They were said to sit in the time vortex like spiders at the heart of a web, detecting the vibrations of passing TARDISes. Only then would they make themselves known, and shimmering into existence to catch the Time Lords unaware. It was elegant and deadly, and, the Doctor realised, Prader and her fleet had just been caught in their web. The Time Lords had no time to react. Not a single one was able to dematerialise before the Dalek weapons cracked them open like tin cans, spilling their insides into the cold vacuum of space. The Doctor roared, slamming his fists into the controls and sending the TARDIS spinning sideways in an evasive action that saved his life. Nevertheless, the TARDIS caught a glancing blow on her right flank and was sent into a wild spin, with the stabilisers unable to compensate. The Doctor slammed her to the floor, rolling off the central dais as the ship jutted. The TARDIS, out of control, hurled headlong towards one of the planets below. Oh, that doesn't sound good. But at least you've now seen me read the Doctor in action. And that was from Chapter 2 in Part 1, Moldox. And I will link the next video. Well, I'll do the next video as soon as I can. And I hope that you are enjoying this, and remember, you can buy Doctor Who Engines of War at Waterstones online. Alright? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. Bye-bye now.